Right, I get it. You want your Notion to look good, but also work well too. So in this video, I'm going to show you all the features you can do to make your Notion more aesthetically pleasing, whilst also having the functionality that you need. Let's get into it. The first is to use the callout feature for more than just information. The callout feature itself is often used for describing information that's going on. Some people like to put warnings on it and all that sort of stuff. But I like to use it in a little bit of a different way. See, there's one problem with Notion when it comes to databases. It's when you have a database itself, you can't split it into two columns like you normally can for everything else that you're doing. Whereas if I actually create another callout feature here and I place the database into the callout feature, I can then create two different columns with the database being in one of them. Perfect example of actually doing this is through the 2024 example in the planner that you can get. Shameless plug, I'm sorry. But it allows you to separate the databases and what you're wanting to do. We have our callout block here that keeps pages in order, and we also have a callout block here which keeps the databases on the second column, meaning that we can have more information on the one page that's relevant to what we're after. By doing this, you can also move the database around and make sure that that's the case. And something that I would always say is go full width using the three wee dots in the corner, which you can go from here, and it means you have a lot more room to actually work with when you're doing stuff on Notion. There are other things you can do from this menu with changing it to serif or changing it to mono, but personally for me, when I'm doing some work, I think the default works quite good. You can also do small text, but again, I don't think it makes that much of a difference and doesn't give you a lot more room when you're working, so I've not really found that much functionality for it. I recently got gifted this by one of my clients, so I'm gonna have to keep up with that status and give you something even better. Normally when people have problems with the things that they use for their systems, it's because you have to constantly come in and out of what you're actually doing. So we have to go into page one, see what information's there, come back out of page one, into page two, and the same again. But there's a function called synced blocks on Notion that allows you to create a more free-flowing menu for your business or your life or whatever you're organizing. What you'll see here in this 2024 example is a synced block with all of the main pages on here. If we go into the core, this is going to show you the main database I created. So I created a main database for all projects and tasks that I'm wanting to do. Again, this is just from the template example, but you can see my point with all of the stuff that's on this database. Now, the problem with this is that if I'm wanting to see different views, if I'm wanting to solely focus on the projects for this quarter and more, I can do it in here, but I can't see it in different views. However, if we come back out to the main page and we see this block, I've created a full page dedicated to projects. So if I click on projects themselves, I'm now going to be able to see this quarter's projects from a linked database. I'm going to see the completed projects from this quarter. I'm also going to be able to see the projects based by their quarter and group format, the key projects, and also all project history. And this is all from this page. But let's say, for example, I now wanted to go and see the tasks that I was doing. Instead of having to come back out and into tasks area, I can instantly go from the projects page to the tasks page right away without having to come in and out of the pages. Here's how you can do it for yourself. Let's say you were creating multiple databases for what you were doing. I would always recommend having a page called the core or the background or anything like that, where you can keep all of the main databases in here. From this area, create a callout block, and you can name this at the top menu. And what I usually like to do with this menu is link it to this page that you're actually on so that you can always go back to your homepage. If I select here and click the menu and I link this page, it means that I can always go back to this page whenever I want. From there, I would start to put in all of this information into the menu block. So we now have page 1, 2, and 3 all in that menu area. Once you come over here and click the 6 little dots, you can copy the link to the block and you can come into page 1 and you can paste this block in. And you can see it's paste and sync. Now what we're seeing is the synced block itself in page 1, and it means that I can click menu and go directly back to the menu whenever I want without actually having to come in and out of the pages constantly. This has been such a game changer for me in all of the templates that I'm creating, as it actually creates a workflow that people can move around freely with without having to constantly try and find what they're after. Next one we're going to be talking about is buttons for functionality. Buttons have been added pretty recently. You're able to do multiple things through the click of a button. If we take the example here, what we can select is for it to open the page, and we can select whatever page we actually want this to open. For example's sake, we'll get it to open page 1, and we'll say that it will open in a side peek. This means we can name this button page 1, And we can also change the icon here, which is another aesthetically pleasing thing, where you can just put a star on it in any color that you want. Now, if I click page 1, it's going to tell me that the button ran successfully, and it's going to open page 1 in a side peek for me. Again, if we're bringing it back to the 2024 example, you can see that we can add whatever we want in here from the main areas that we're working on. Let's say we wanted to add a new task for this week quickly, and I didn't want to go into the tasks page and do that. I can simply select this button, it adds a new task in for me there, it tells me it's to be completed by today, I can write the steps needed to be done for it, and I can link it to any of the projects that we're working on and any of the main goals that we've actually got. Inside these buttons, they work with databases and also opening the new pages that have been created in these databases to work with you. And it makes it so much easier for you to actually flow through your business rather than, again, having to go into different pages and try different functions to adding new database entries. Leading on from the databases and what we were talking about there, it's how to make your databases look a little bit nicer, because obviously the table database right here isn't that nice or aesthetically pleasing. But what you can do is you can make it look a lot better and actually look a lot nicer. The first thing I would always recommend doing is coming in here and naming whatever view you're after. So let's just say, for example, this is the cool table, and again, we can put a airplane departing off in the cool table. That instantly makes it so much cooler. With all of the areas you put into your database, let's say, for example, we were doing a select and it was going to be day of the week. In here, you could add an icon to what that is. If you put a day, then you can add the calendar, and it makes it so much better than just having the base icons of what they use. Taking it a step further, when you're creating templates for these databases themselves, I would always recommend customizing them to how you see fit. So again, if we're going to add something in for the days of the week, we can add in here, we can go to the icons, we can go in a day, we can select this, whatever color we want, and we can add day in there. And I would also recommend always adding a cover for what you're doing. So from this area, you can change the cover, you can go to unsplash. Let's just say that's quite a cool picture. And that means that every time we duplicate or create something from this template itself, we then have this image that's going to come up. We come back out of this day area, we make sure that this is the default template for what we're doing, and we add a new place in. We'll see that the day comes up with the icon, and if we're to open it up, that image is going to be there. Another cool way of looking at this is that if we add a new view and we actually select a different view with the gallery, we're then going to be able to see all of the data entries from this database in a gallery view. If we come down to the areas at the bottom right, we can come down to the gallery view with the card preview and select page cover, meaning that this now changes to the page cover that we've had, and we can select small, medium, or large for whatever we're wanting to do. This can be seen in the example here where we've got the top goals for the year, and all of their pictures related to what the goals are actually after. It just means you get a better image of what's going on, and I think a lot of us like to see the visual stuff, so this gives you the opportunity to do that for all your database entries. Kind of leaning on from what we just spoke about with the page covers and the icons, for any page that you're doing, always put an icon or a custom image or any emojis that you want to actually put in, because it always looks better, especially in your navigation and menus. The next thing is to use pixel art. Pixel art is the coolest thing ever. I mean, even the top of this screen looks so much better purely based on the pixel art. So on Google, search up pixel art GIF wallpaper, and then what you can do is you can select the image, anything that you're wanting to do. If I copy the image address here, I come onto this area, I can change the cover, I put a link, and then I copy the image and I submit, then it will load in itself and I can reposition this to any way that I want, and it just looks so much better. The final thing I'm going to cover today is just simple toggles. There's sometimes a lot of information that we want to be condensed in an area, and we don't want it shown up all the time. So let's say, for example, we wanted this table to be in its own toggle. If we do /toggle in here, it will create a toggle list, and we can name this table. So that means that when we highlight this and we bring the database into the table, it will now be hidden away and I can see it whenever I want. Instead of actually having it always on display, if we don't need it on display, it can allow for our databases and our pages to look so much more aesthetically pleasing, purely because we've been able to hide those areas that we don't need. And just as a little final quick tip, I always like at the top of my pages, if I have a start here or I have a menu button, to be able to just add a simple divider. It allows you to see that this is a new area, we're starting fresh, and we're ready to go on to the next piece of information. I'd say I've lived up to the Notion Wizard standard, I won't lie, but if there's anything else that you want to learn about with Notion, then be sure to let me know down in the comments. Watch this video on the screen now to be able to crush all of your goals next year, and you can download the template right from the description.